And we are live, coming to you from a wet and rainy Southern California, secret location and all that. I am Marcus Matthews with the Black Powder Podcast. And today we got something really, really special for you, something that you're going to enjoy because this is a libertarian podcast where we talk about guns and god awful government. I hope I did that part right. I knew I screwed that up, but I am here with my non-melanated Anglo brothers, Eric Parker. Hey, where's your where's my tag? I don't see my tag as the only real libertarian.
Oh, well, we don't need it.
Yes, we do. At any rate, I'm here with Eric Parker. Eric, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm just happy to be
All right.
here.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and pay some bills real quick before we get into this with our esteemed guest Michael White. Yeah. We got a few sponsors out there. Common Arms Trading Company. All your FFL firearm needs. They're a licensed FFL. They got guns. I think they can ship it anywhere in the United States. I don't know.
They can.
I'll be corrected on that later.
Yeah, and if you spend use the code Black Powder, if you for 10% off, you spend $100 or more. And
there you go.
Yeah.
And then you also got 1776 swag, dope swag there. Go get your stuff at 1776swag.com. And we got a new one, Horny Town Gun and Ammo. I bought this hat, but that's local to me. It's the closest gun store to me. It's literally a dude with a Connex box and an FFL. You know what I mean? He's got some guns. He's got some ammo. You know what I mean?
That's the guy you want to do business with.
Exactly.
And so
they got let's get to the gist. Too, so.
Got you. My bad, homie. I'm so excited. I'm sorry if I'm like intruding because I can't contain myself with the excitement of our guest tonight, live and direct from some location in Arkansas. We have the one, the only, the incomparable Michael White.
Thank you for having me. It's weird to like not say anything during that open, and like I realize now how much of that like I get the ice broken for y'all. So
yeah, you grease the wheels, you grease the skids.
Yeah, you know dude.
Okay,
This is my first podcast since announcing the campaign. And I was going to make sure that the first one was going to be Black Powder. So there's been 2 other offers to get me on something. I was like, let me do this first, and then we'll talk about when I go on yours. So had to do this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you mind telling us who the competitors are?
I'll take it off air.
Gotcha.
I'll tell you off air.
Well, let's get into this. A lot of you guys know Michael White from our podcast as one of the co-hosts. I know him as my cyber brother, as we haven't necessarily met in person. But the first time I had him on a podcast was 2 years ago. And that's when he was running for, was it District 1 in Arkansas or District
2? Yeah, U.S. Congress District 2.
US. Yep. And he did this debate where he just simply eviscerated French. What was his name?
Yeah, French Hill. Yeah.
French Hill.
Yep.
And we're not even going to talk about the other lady because she didn't even want any part of that like bloodbath that you went through. From that point forward, I was infatuated with this man as far as the liberty movement goes, because this is a family podcast as well. But I was infatuated with Michael White. I was like, who is this guy? And how was he so articulate when he was just stabbing him in the stomach with a prison shank on stage in that debate? Who is this guy? And so I had him on the podcast, and I immediately knew there was something special about this man. And so without further ado, can you tell the people why you're on this podcast right now?
I'm on this podcast because I like you guys. That's why I'm on this podcast right now. No,
that's all we need.
So for those who have paid attention or are not, I am running for a different office this season. I'm running for a state representative office here in the state of Arkansas. So not the federal house, but the state house here in West Little Rock, District 7-5. It's a very unique situation that we have currently. I'm not going to take a ton of time with this story, but I'll just tell it how I can. we sued the state of Arkansas in 2020 to get ballot access because the state had changed the law for signature requirements for new parties, which the Libertarian Party at that time had filed 6 times, and 6 times had been put on the ballot. And they raised the signature requirements like 4 times, essentially. And it was during COVID, and people weren't answering doors, and there was no gathering in public. And it was just, impossible to get this thing done. So we sued the state of Arkansas in federal court. I was not a party to this lawsuit. This happened before I even got here, really. And basically said, hey, look, the First Amendment rights of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas are being violated. And the federal judge agreed. And she said, okay, we're going to put you on the ballot under like a TRO kind of thing, like a temporary thing. And we're going to strike through sections of the law as written in the Arkansas Code. And then we're going to give it back to the legislature. And you're going to work with the legislature and the Secretary of State in Arkansas to get your ballot access law redone. And so 2022, we run a race. Ricky Dale Harrington, who we had on here, he ran for governor as our ballot access candidate to try to get over 3%. We didn't get over that during that race. And part of the strategy to help Ricky get that number was we did like a shotgun approach. We put 56 libertarian candidates on the ballot in the state. Right. The idea being that if everyone had a libertarian candidate on their ballot, they may be more familiar with it. They may be more comfortable voting with it. I don't know if that turned out to be a good strategy or not. I'm not here to dissect the strategy. And that's how I kind of came into this. So I ran for the U.S. House of Representatives mainly because I knew that I would get to be on TV at least one time, right? And so I did that so that I could have that debate. I knew that I could make liberty legitimate if I just had some people's ear, right? And one of the hardest things that we have as libertarian candidates is getting people to listen. And one of those reasons is because we don't have a loudspeaker, and because we don't have a loudspeaker because people don't listen because we're not in power, and it's a circular sort of thing, right? So it was a rare and unique opportunity that was presented here for me to do that. And, it was a midterm election. We had, there was supposed to be the red wave, but, all these problems were happening with the economy, and inflation was just kicking off, and things that libertarians have been saying was coming for, decades. Right. And so it was a lot of fun. And nobody really knew who I was really until that debate happened. And, so after that, I kind of just kept going with being a congressional candidate. Like, I just didn't change anything. Like, I just stayed Michael White for U.S. Congress. I wasn't changing anything. And my intention was I was just going to do this again. Like, I was just going to run again in 2024 under the same office. It'd be a 3-way race between myself, a Democrat, and the sitting congressman. And I would get on the debate stage again, and I'd hand their ass to them again. That's what I'd do. And in the meantime, maybe wake some more people up. And I was fully committed and happy to do that. And so we, in that story, that legislative process we had going on to getting the ballot access redone here in Arkansas, we had our bill presented to these, in committee, and we tried to petition them to go ahead and give us major party status. We said, look, we had a state candidate who got 4.3% of the vote, our Simeon Snow for state auditor. We're like, hey, use that one in lieu of the governor. Just put us on the ballot as a main candidate, major party status. We'll all be on the same playing field. And we would like that. And that's what we would like. And of course, they didn't want that. So the way they wrote the law was they would be filing their candidates in November. And by the time they were getting around to primaries, we'd be filing ours. So for anybody out there who's astute enough to understand, it meant that we knew exactly which races were unopposed. And guess what, legislature of Arkansas? You did that. So don't get griping. You did that, and we tried to tell you. Okay, so the night that the filing was done, and so that's for independents and major party candidates. So independents, Democrats and Republicans had to file in November. If you're an independent, you had a certain time to raise signatures, but Democrats and Republicans are already on the ballot. So when the filing closed, we began looking at all the races, like where can we be effective? Where is a good place to go? Arkansas is a deeply red state. I don't think that anybody questions that. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is our governor, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's a very deeply red state, and the people are proudly Republican. Many people are, and the districts that are Republican in this state swing wildly Republican. They're like 80, 85 points Republican. So, Eric, if you were running as the Republican incumbent in many of these districts, unopposed, we could run a libertarian against you, but at best, they're going to do 20%. That's just what's going to
Mhm.
happen. You know, the people are
Yep.
happy with you. They have no reason to get you out. And, you know, that would be it. The Democrat districts in this state also, interestingly, the majority of them go 80% or 70% because you're talking about like highly urban districts in Little Rock, Arkansas, Texarkana, Fort Smith, the Delta area. And, you know, they're 80% Democrats. So if they run unopposed and we ran a candidate, same situation, 20%. There's a handful of districts in Arkansas, and I mean, I think 4 maximum, where the two parties, Democrats and Republicans, are within 10 points of each other. In 2 of those districts, a Democrat was running unopposed. And one of those is this one,
Nice.
my district. So that obviously changed things, what we were going to do, right? And, you know, it's kind of a weird deal, right? Because like you run a race thinking, I'm going to message, I'm going to do this. And there's not a lot of pressure of having to win. You know, that's a different thing. And so you start looking at this, and the lady that I'm running against, her name is Ashley Hudson. She's actually a very nice woman. There's nothing wrong with her. She won her original seat by 24 votes with, you know, 14,000 people.
What
voting.
year was that?
That was in 2020. So
Wow.
she's a freshman representative. She's not, you know, entrenched really. I mean, she's new there. So all these things are going, you know, all the things we can't control, you know, the uncontrollables are never going to be more favorable, right? So this is a two-way race in a purple district, as purple as it can get. Super, super close split between Democrats and Republicans. Presidential election year where Donald Trump's going to be the Republican candidate who's
Yeah.
the favorite candidate of Arkansans, and you know, Joe Biden is the incumbent.
Yeah.
And I mean, it couldn't be better. So this is a winnable election. And I mean, we always say that, guys. I know we have guests on, we talk about elections, and we always say we're run to win. People are always saying that. But we know in our hearts that while anything can happen, there's the usual outcomes, right, of what's going to be, where the standard deviation is going to be. And this is one where we can win this. Like, it's not like a fluke that would happen. This is 100% winnable. So that's where we are. And we announced the campaign February 26th, and we raised roughly close to $12,000 in the first 24 hours of announcing the campaign, which is pretty significant because it's going to be about $100,000 to win this race. She raised
Did you say that again?
about $100,000 to win this race. That's how much it's going to be. And so raising 10% of that in one day was pretty good. We're pretty excited about that. And now we're just, you know, doing the early campaign stuff that we know that we should be doing. And that's raising money, building alliances, talking to people and media, getting things planned for the ground game in the summer, you know, all those things that we have to do. So that's how we got here. That's where we are. That's who I am. And that's why I'm here.
Okay.
So real quick,
go ahead,
Marcus, if you don't mind, I'm just going to say this is the perfect time to bring up giving to the Michael White campaign. I feel like that's exactly what I was about to say. He just brought up money. Look, the link is right there, people. This is urgent, and it's a big deal, and it's a winnable race. I want to say I ran for a local race, but for like 2 years, and I only raised $20,000. It's actually pretty good for a local race, but
very impressive,
when you're running citywide with a population of 1 million people, it's not enough. And that's what I'm saying is, if you guys want Michael to have a real winning chance, go give 10, 20 bucks right now. If you're watching this live stream, look, this is the telethon. Well, if you want, I don't know if we can have you call in. I don't know how that works. If you want to call in, I'll give you my phone number right now. Oh,
they
Lars,
can
I see you down there.
Comment. Yeah, they can comment.
I don't know. Yeah, comment right here. Look, Lars, I see you.
That's my man right there. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Lars is awesome. Yeah, so MW, the number 4, liberty.com, like Modern Warfare 4, MW4liberty.com/donate. You can go there, and yeah, I mean, look, I hear a lot. This is gonna sound kind of shitty, but I'm not gonna hold back. Every day I see people talking all kind of mad shit in the liberty movement. Okay, about the things we should do, the things they could do, the things that they would have done differently, how you could have done this, how you could have done that. I hear nothing but high capping from so many people.
Preach.
And if I wasn't in this race, if this was somebody else, if this is Eric in this race, this is Marcus in this race, this is Lars in this race, this is whoever's in this race, in this exact race, I'd go, that's the most winnable election we've had on a state level, possibly in a decade, right? And this needs to be supported and you need to put your money where your mouth is on this one. And so, when the call to action comes out and I see these people, they can't even come up with $25. And, I'm sitting here building a donor list from Republican donors from previous candidates. And the minimum most of these people ever gets $250 from normal everyday people. So it's also a thing like we get the party we deserve too. If some of the reason that we're ineffective is because we're ineffective. I mean, when you got, little Miss Maisie giving the Republican candidate $250 at the start of a campaign, every single campaign for a decade, and you can't even get $25 from people who have followed you for 2 years, you realize very quickly why we have this uphill struggle. This is in many ways self-imposed. So I know that kind of sounds like an indictment against a lot of people, but it is. I mean, it's meant to get people thinking and understand, if you want to see this happen, if you want to see liberty legitimized in one more state, you have to get involved. And unfortunately, right now, the way that it works in a race is early on, that's money. It's fundraising. Yeah. We have a lot of stuff to buy. Just data. Eric, just voter data is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking $1,600 just to get in the door with some basic stuff, right? You want to go ahead and you want to do a direct mail campaign to 20,000 voters, you're talking about 10 grand, right? You want to do a targeted one, you're talking about 5 grand. So that's just to get one mailer out. Think about some of these candidates that run in your district, Marcus. How many mailers do you get from them? Maybe dozen in a campaign, right?
Dozen. Yeah.
And then you also see them on TV, and you also hear them on the radio, and you also see them on the internet. And so, we can talk about grassroots politics all day. That's great. But at some point in time, you have to be able to
shut up.
Yeah, you have to be able to play the same game. So yeah, if you're listening to this, you want to see a libertarian in the state house, mwforliberty.com/donate. We have the best chance to do it. We will do it. And the only thing that will hold us back is if we don't get enough support from people.
Okay. So
thank you. Yes, he has.
Let's get into some bread and butter shit right here.
Okay.
Let's say I'm the average Arkansan, even though I'm infinitely more beautiful probably than in California, I'm like a 7.5. In Arkansas, I'm like a 12.2.
Dude, I don't know, man. Like, the scale in Arkansas kind of goes like, it's like an inverted sort of, curve. Like you got really, really hot people in it. So I don't know, man. You might be like a 4 or 5 here in Arkansas. I don't know, man. We got some beautiful people. I mean, there's some really beautiful people. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Marcus, we're trying to get this guy elected.
Well, I'm just saying that was the politician Michael White. We're going to get to the real Michael White, because for him to call me a whore, that's some political bullshit. That is horse pucky. All right. So let's say I'm the average Arkansan. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah, Arkansas.
And
right. Yeah.
I see Michael White, libertarian for state representative. And let's say I've never heard a libertarian or what a libertarian is. What are you going to explain to me as we're standing in the Piggly Wiggly?
Well, we don't have a Piggly Wiggly in the district. We got the Costco and the Trader Joe's over here. This is West Little Rock. Okay, we got some
high
things.
Class.
Yeah, we've had electricity over here for a while.
You obviously have a Sam's Club. You're in Arkansas.
We do have a Sam's Club. Yeah.
Okay.
We got a Sam's Club and a Costco in the same district. Honestly, so it's kind of there at war a little bit. So when people ask me like, what is a libertarian and what does it mean? I tend to try to gauge where this person's coming from. Okay. Like where they are kind of in their life. And so I usually would ask a couple questions first of them. Like I'll ask them, well, what do you think a Republican is? And what do you think a Democrat is? And depending on those answers, I kind of have a couple answers, but my general go-to default answer is the one that I always give, which is I believe in the concept of self-ownership. I believe that you own yourself. And then I kind of always give the rhetoric is, I hope you agree, because if you didn't, you would be essentially saying someone else has a greater claim to your life than you do. And that usually gets people hooked and they understand where I'm going. And then I just start explaining how, self-ownership reflects each other, how we arrive at the nap. I can do this in about, minute and a half, 2 minutes. But that's really kind of where I go with it. and then depending on where that person is, if I'm meeting someone, for instance, I talked to two very conservative individuals a couple days after the campaign who were in this district, and they were like, I could tell they were alluding to that they kind of thought libertarians were Republicans who smoke weed, right?
Mhm.
And
With that.
and I kind of hit him with the Larry Sharpism, which is, look, you can be as conservative or as liberal as you want to be. This is a question of, do you want to use the government to force everyone else to be? And instantly they got that, you know.
That's
And then I
awesome.
often, you know, and I typically, I mean, you know, like it, love it, or hate it, I will often kind of summon the founding fathers, because I do believe that the principles of libertarianism are very much reflected in those founding principles. Now, look, they weren't perfect men. We know that, Marcus. We've talked about this before, right?
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like they were doing everything great. I understand that, but they did have this very great idea
It's the
of
concept.
yeah, they had a very great idea
Always
of limited
concept.
government. The
Yeah.
individual mattered more than the masses, that you had to preserve the individual, that collectivism was bad, but ironically, if you made things good for the individual, collectively that was good. And we
Right.
all did better when we did that. And so, yeah, I kind of have 3 or 4 go-to answers, but it just depends on who I'm with. But that's typically it. I'll talk about something about self-ownership, something about the founding fathers, and then, you know, I tend to ask them what they think, and we kind of go from there.
Yeah, I actually had my thought process when I talk to people about libertarianism. You actually broke that down for me, because, you know, when I talk to conservatives, I talk to them differently than I talk to liberals,
Yeah,
because the libertarian can find common ground.
yeah,
And that's how we build something, when people find common ground.
yeah.
And I want to get into the issues that Michael White stands on, and I'm going to let you take the reins on each individual one,
Okay.
and then we'll just go down the line and just get your input, because this is to sell libertarianism to the masses. This is a winnable race. This is, you know, what pisses me off about libertarians, aside from everything, is the fact that a lot of people who claim to be libertarians say, oh, they can't win a race. This is a winnable race.
Yeah, it's winnable. There's no doubt.
So
Yeah.
now you have to put your money where your mouth is, because everybody says, I won't vote for a libertarian because they won't win. MF, because I'm trying to be a good boy today. Look, MF, if you gave and donated to a libertarian that can win a race, give to all libertarians. But in this specific moment, we are with a libertarian that can win this race, and we need to back his ass up. And, you know, and being that he's originally from Louisiana, that was a little juvenile.
Yeah, 400 degrees. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, dude. I'm a kid of the late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Step
know,
the F up. It's
Cash
the
Money
time
Records.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
Michael, yeah, go
And
ahead.
again, we have very strict, you know, financial disclosure laws. I want to remind people, when you're giving to a candidate, it's not like I can go spend this on something I want, right? These
Right.
are very specific things they can be used for. Eric, you know this very well. You know,
Yeah.
my
Oh,
mother,
yeah.
my grandmother, bless her heart, she donated to my campaign, and she did not know this. She was like, well, are you going to go buy a suit with it? I was like, Franny, I can't go buy a suit with this. I was like, that's not what I can do. I had to buy a suit with my own money. I was like, but I can buy some signs with this. And I was like, and you're going to buy this many. And I thank you so much. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, that's how this works. So if anybody's out there wondering, no, you're not buying Michael a new iPhone. You know, you're not
No
buying.
new Uzi.
Yeah, you're not no new Uzi. I'm not
Look.
buying new guns. You're not buying parts for the Forerunner. This is for campaigning on these issues. So
I'll run it down
You're not
real
a real
quick.
politician. You're not a real politician.
Michael probably has a website, right? I'm guessing at mw4liberty.com.
That's
that
right.
domain name costs money.
That's right.
To build it on whatever platform you use to build it, that costs money.
Yep.
The business cards that if he doesn't already have them, he has to get them. Those cost money. That's you run into somebody in the gas station, the grocery store, wherever. You got to hand out a business card. You're going door to door. He's going to need like door hangers or literature. That costs money, and it's not cheap. I'm saying like a good mailer. All right, so mailers are even more expensive. That costs money. He probably needs at least $50,000 just for mailers. I don't know what you've figured up, but
we'll kind of get into like some strategy stuff later. I believe
right,
that we can
anyways,
be lean.
or we don't get into it.
I believe we can be leaner and meaner than the established parties just because we can be more mobile. But
Gotcha.
because I'm fully like, this is what I'm doing till November. Like, this is my job.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm not doing
Gotcha.
anything else but this. And so I think that we can really hit it pretty well. But to get into issues, I kind of hate the idea of like, what are your top 3 issues? I know this is a very common sort of candidate sort of question, but this is an uncommon podcast, so I can say that is, there's a lot of issues that affect everybody, and I really try to focus on what affects everybody. What are the, I take the Ron Paul approach, or what are the worst evils? Start with the worst and let's work our way down, right? And to me, I always go back to taxes, okay? Because I believe that forced taxation is an evil, okay? And we can try to come up with fancy reasons why it's not, but, radical concept is I believe that you should own your property and you should own your labor, okay? And because if you don't own your labor, you're a slave. If you don't own your property, you're a renter. And both those situations under taxation, you are a slave to the government and a renter to the government. So, a number of states don't have an income tax. Eric, you're from a state that doesn't have an income tax. Florida didn't have an income tax. So a number of states do this. Our governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, one of her campaign promises was to phase out the state income tax. I would join her in those efforts. I'd work with her on getting that done. I think that's completely reasonable, and we can have that accomplished. But I want to take it a step further. I want to find a way to end in perpetuity property taxes on vehicles and personal residences. Now, and the pie in the sky North Star idea, of course, is no taxes on anything, but I'm a pragmatist and I'm a realist. And I understand that in the political paradigm of the world today, you have to actually have revenue neutral solutions that you can sell to a wide demographic and get a lot of buy-in from both Democrats and Republicans if you want to get legislation passed. You can't put some libertarian ideal as a bill and expect it to go anywhere, right? So how do we do that? That's the interesting thing. When you talk about how you fund counties in Arkansas, there is, of course, every county is different. Like my county, Pulaski County, with Little Rock in it, we have a lot of real estate turnover, both commercial and residential. There's rural counties, obviously, a bunch of them in this state where there's not a lot of turnover, where it's been the same family farmland for, decades and generations and generations. And then, of course, the state normalizes those funds based off educational needs because that's tied into education. And of course, the vehicle renewals are also kind of like that. Every county kind of sets their own sort of thing about how that works. So it's a little bit complicated. There's a big entangled web there of a lot of things to figure out. But I know this. We have really smart people who can figure it out. And it starts with going, hey, here's the problem, figure it out, right? We have to do that first. We have to say that first. And so I can at least get that impetus going in the legislature. I believe I can, get the Bureau of Legislative Research and some pretty smart economic heads behind me to figure out how we could do that. Because there's a number of compromises I could see that would be okay with me. Maybe it is, hey, after 10 years you own your house, or maybe it's a transaction fee for commercial, or maybe it's after 5 years this goes to here. I don't know. But anything is better than what we have now, which is you never own your house. You never own it. You can pay it off tomorrow and you will pay taxes on it to the day you die. And if you don't, they're going to come take it from you. So that's number one. Number two, this is the big one, Marcus. We've talked about this. Mm-hmm. The generational cycle of dependency. Okay. Arkansas has a federal dependence problem, significant problem. We take in a large portion of our revenue federally. We take in more than we pay out. Okay. So we literally are dependent upon the federal government. Now, from a financial standpoint, from a fiscally solvent standpoint, that's already a problem. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Washington, D.C. is not doing too good when it comes to money, right? So that should be something that worries people, but also a worry about it from the fact of what the federal government can make people do when they control the purse strings. We saw this with the speed limit going to 55 way back in the day.
Way back.
They said, look, you don't have to do it, but you know what? If you don't do it, we're not going to give you money for your roads. And of course, everybody loves their roads, right? And we saw this with, vaccine mandates, with Medicare, CMS. Again, hey, look, you don't have to force your healthcare workers to take it. But, if you don't set this system in place, we're going to withhold Medicare funding from you. And in rural hospitals and in southern hospitals like Arkansas and Louisiana, the vast majority of our revenue comes from the federal government when it comes to healthcare. So without them, literally hospitals shut down, places go out of business. That's not a good place to be in, right? That's not a good place to be in. And why is that? Why do we have such a large dependent population? Marcus, every year in the legislature in Arkansas, you got two conversations that happen, brother. Okay. You got Republicans saying, which people can we take off which federal programs? Okay. And then you got the Democrats going, which people can we put on which federal programs? That's the two conversations you have every year. And they've had those conversations since 1964. That's the conversations they've had every year. Same one. Nobody stands up and goes, hold on, why the hell are so many Arkansans dependent on federal aid in the first place?
Mhm.
And how do we make a future where they're not? Because somebody needs to ask those questions. And what you get to is some very simple, pragmatic things, which is we spend a ton of money on children for 12 years to leave an institution with zero marketable skills.
Zero.
With zero.
Absolutely zero.
With
Yeah.
absolutely zero. And oh, by the way, more than a third of them can't read at grade level. 43% of them are never going to go to college, which is okay. I mean, you don't have to go to college, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the 67% that do, we know that only about half of those ever graduate with a degree. And of those degrees, we don't know which ones are useful. Now, look, I would love, the government out of education completely. The reason why you and the three of us think that is because we're all fairly independent, right? The three of us on this panel today, we can support ourselves. We're not reliant on some sort of welfare program to make our everyday needs. If we were, we might be singing a different tune, right? We might say, well, the government needs to be involved in education. The government needs to do this. So the answer to getting independent is to have an independent generation. And you get an independent generation by having people that can earn a living wage or an excelling wage, even right out of high school. So we have a school choice initiative here, which is a kind of a step toward liberty a little bit, but there's some problems with it. But we need a curriculum choice issue. We need to be able to work with parents and at the 8th grade level, 6th grade level, 5th grade level, I don't know when, smart people can figure it out, is say, hey, you know what, Marcus, he's not going to be like splitting the atom when he leaves high school, but we think he'd be one hell of a welder. And we can have him with a welding certificate, leaving here at 17, making $37.50 an hour, And so here's the problem with that, though. This is what the progressive will say. They'll say, well, Michael, we don't have to have our K through 12 program run a certain way. But if we don't get federal money for what? For impoverished neighborhoods, for lunches for, kids in poverty, for these things, Title I funds. So how do you make those funds up? Well, why don't we lease DOE buildings to trade schools who will generate revenue from contracts for tuition and then also from job placements for those kids? That's how we replace that revenue. And then we're growing a class of independent people who don't get involved in criminality, who start families, who then in 25 years are sitting on podcasts like this going, we need to get rid of taxes. That's what we want to do, right? As opposed to growing a larger dependent generation. So, and every Southern state has that problem. And nobody's actually looking at it, right? And those are really the two big ones to me, is how do we gain a little bit of independence with what we have? And then how do we grow a new independent generation? Because so many of our problems, and Marcus, we've talked about it before many, many times, is so many things are an economic problem masquerading as an education problem, or masquerading as a criminal justice problem.
Yeah.
Is this all comes back to standards and livelihood. And so we have a way to get there, but it's not going to happen as long as those two voices are on the only two conversations that you have. And then, okay. I mean, that's really the two big main ones. And if you want to have a third one, the third one, Marcus, just simply changing the conversation, which kind of goes with the first two. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to make liberty legitimate and the Libertarian Party a legitimate choice for individuals of both parties in the legislature. If they feel that they're having to vote a certain way to keep their jobs, which we know happens, right? Mm-hmm. And we could like, love, or hate that, or we can condemn that or not. But I want, like, for instance, good Republican, representatives and good Democrat representatives too, to feel like they have a place that they can come if they're gonna get on board with the NAP, right? Like a viable place where we can keep you in, the political arena, but you can be effective and you don't have to sacrifice your principles. A place to a life, sort of a lifeboat for the really good ones, because we run the good ones out and we keep the bad ones. And so those three things are what's important to me, man.
Well, I feel remiss for not saying this earlier. The views expressed by Marcus D. Matthews and Eric Parker are not necessarily the views of Michael White, candidate for Arkansas State House. So I want to clear that up. But at the same time, when we talk about government, the government only understands two things. And this is from the local to the federal. Government only understands violence and money.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the only two things government promises you if you don't comply with what they believe you need to comply with, because they have a monopoly on violence. And if you have your money in a bank account, or if you have a job, a legitimate job, the government can take your money at will. And
People,
so,
Marcus, I'm going to interrupt there. People often, if you notice on social media, if you say something like that to somebody who doesn't sort of is not involved in the libertarian circle, they go, "What do you mean?" Right? Like, I just witnessed this 2 weeks ago. I was at a new development showing a client some condos that had come up in a gentrified neighborhood, and the sheriff's department was 5 doors down, serving like an 85-year-old black woman an eviction notice because she can't pay her taxes on her house, because the taxes went up, because the neighborhood has gone up. It wasn't the fact that somebody came in and built luxury condos that kicked her out. It was the government that kicked her out. That's what happened. And so there's deputies, there's men with guns there that say, "Look, I don't know where you're going, but you can't stay here." Right. And you got 24 hours, and I'm sorry that nobody can help you. And so I went down there and I put her in touch with some people that I knew that could volunteer to help move some stuff, and tried to figure out a place where she could go for a little bit. But that's what is happening across this country every day. Every day that is happening. And I can't help but think, how in the hell do we call ourselves the land of the free when you can't even own your house? How?
So Joe Hanoush mentioned the tub solution, and
Yeah.
I don't want to mess it up. Y'all know Tub. We had him on. Tub, whenever we were running for Jacksonville City Council, we caught the property appraiser of Duval County in the parking lot after like a Republican town hall. We all just went to watch. Like, we weren't even invited necessarily. We went, we were candidates campaigning, and we wanted to pass our stuff out. We listened to like 4 Republican mayors talk, and then they left, and we caught the property appraiser in the parking lot. We were just talking, and Tub was asking them about, like, hey, why can't we do a thing where you pay your property taxes one time? Like, let's set a dollar amount.
Right.
It's a sales tax like anything else.
Yep.
If you want to, you can finance that number into your mortgage at the very beginning.
Right.
The county gets their money.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay it over the life of the mortgage, or, as soon as you pay it off, whatever. And that's it. Once you pay it, it's done. But if you buy another property, you have to do it again. It's a sales tax.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Now, so if you're someone on a fixed income and you just need a place to live until the day you die, you don't have to pay that tax anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're, because I've had people that are in real estate will say, well, this would hurt the real estate market. And it's like, no, and you Michael, have experience in real estate. I disagree with that, because the real estate market, there's always new customers and people that are different.
And markets normalize to conditions when conditions are normalized across the market. So
exactly,
every market out there has some sort of form of government interference, right? And we're not going to get rid of it, all government interference tomorrow. But the question is, which is the most moral and which is the best principle to move forward with? And something like a one-time is something that's like that. Like, I'm done. Okay, now I can own my house. Yeah. But yeah, you get those people that are like, well, that's going to hurt. No, it's not. No, it's not. Shut up. No, it's not. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
shout out to my wife. She just brought me a beer. So
there you go. Mrs. Parker. There you go. Yeah.
We did just move to North Carolina, and we all know Lieutenant Governor Robinson's position on women. We're not going to get into that today, though. But I want to switch gears real quick.
Sure.
And I want to start off with this quote, because we're going to talk about your position on public safety.
Okay.
And this quote from Dr. Amos Wilson says, if you want to understand any problem in America, you need to focus on who profits from that problem, not who suffers from that problem. Yeah. And as far as public safety goes, we get pretty much, in my calculations, 70% of all crime is related to drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I'm being conservative in saying that. As far as Michael White on public safety, how do you focus that issue because Little Rock can be a dangerous place in certain parts.
Well, yeah, but like I tell my clients that move here, I say the same thing that I said to you. They're not shooting at you.
Yeah,
They're not
exactly.
shooting at you. Now, that might not sound like it's going to be really reassuring, but I want you to think about a second what that means.
Right.
It means that there is a faction of individuals who are encompassing the violence. And again, what you said, what is surrounding it? What are the things that has in common? It has fatherless homes in common, right? It has neighborhoods void of business opportunities with high levels of government welfare, right? And then it has individuals, kids that have been in the system essentially since early on, since the truancy days. You know that I worked with at-risk youth in Louisiana. This is the same story here in Arkansas. 8 years old, 9 years old. Little Jimmy, he is all of a sudden his mom is not taking him to school. He's in the truancy center. Then he's on paper. He's on juvenile probation, and boom, he's in the system. And so at 15, what would be it just slap on the wrist for you or I becomes an incarcerable offense, right? At 17, all of a sudden he's got a third one. It's tried as an adult, right? He goes to the penitentiary for 2 years. He comes back out. He's a felon on parole, and he can't get a good job. And all of this started way back here. You want to ask who profits off this? A lot of people profit off this, and I know they do because it's so easy to see what's going on that not stopping it means that people want it to continue, right? There's people that profit off this, and everybody that's a big business interest in Arkansas profits off this. There was this call from many people that somehow if we throw more money at this problem, you're going to fix it, right? That's an inelastic solution. You could throw a $1 jillion at it, and it's not going to fix these issues. These are generational issues that will take generations to grow out of. That's the truth. They were grown generationally. They will have to be fixed generationally. But this call to action about like we're going to take people's guns or something, that's not happening. I mean, and I'm not really worried about that in Arkansas. I mean, we're pretty on board with that here. But every now and then these become the impetus for those conversations too. So yeah, I mean, Marcus, a vast number of things we consider crimes are not. If we would stop considering those things crimes, we'd have more law enforcement resources to deal with actually violent offenders. And if we had a prison system that actually answered to recidivism rates, we would probably start seeing better things. But we set up people for failure, not for success. I can't tell you a number of felons that I've worked with or know that the number one thing they need to avoid criminality, we know from a statistical standpoint, is a living wage. And the number one thing that we make super hard for them to get is a living wage. So, I mean, we're the impediment. Yeah.
I want to keep this comment up for a second because this has been the bane of my existence politically since I can remember. And it's, should prisons be privatized? And I say, fuck no.
All right,
and
so I got
no.
two answers for you. You. One is fuck no, Marcus. But the other one is, if they're going to be private, what are their incentives?
More crime.
That's right. That's the problem. The problem isn't that they're private. Libertarians love when private industry handles a public problem. The problem is that their incentives are disaligned with what the public wants. We want less future crime. They want more current crime. That's how they make money.
Yeah.
So if these are licensed on a recidivism reduction measure, all of a sudden they're doing what we want, and they're not this evil entity, right? They're just playing the game, and they're playing their incentives like any other system does. And their incentives right now are you get paid per bed per head. That's it. And you need to keep them full, and they will lobby to keep them full. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Gary Johnson, and I can't remember his solution, but he had a decent solution for this in New Mexico whenever he was governor. I don't know if he ever implemented it.
He got rid of them.
Yeah, you have to go back and look at what he did, though, and how he was able to, essentially.
There's some interesting things.
He worked on decriminalizing marijuana, but
yeah.
There's another one too. Like, if you go look at, and this is any state in the union today, the criminal code is a spaghetti work of so many intricacies, mandatory minimum sentences, trigger laws that trigger other things, different age brackets. Laws. Yeah, all kinds of things like that. I mean, and if you were going to have if you were 100% focused as a legislature on getting those all reformed, it might take a decade, right? Here's one that you could sort of kind of do it in a different way, kind of around the circle. The plea bargain is used in criminal court far too often. It's essentially, the system works this way. We'll stack a bunch of charges on you, and we'll say, hey, look, if you go to trial, you could be getting 60 years, right? Mm-hmm. But if you plead guilty to this, we'll just give you 5 and you'll be out in 2.5 with good time, right? And 99, 95% of the criminal convictions in this country happen that way. If you had some sort of system, and I haven't thought through all the moral hazards of it, so don't indict me on this one if I'm not perfect. If you had some sort of system that said, hey, look, here's the maximum you can be given at a trial if this was your plea bargain, what happens eventually is prosecutors would be plea bargaining for no jail time to no jail time needed crimes because everybody would take the trial if it wasn't going to be too much more than what they were offered, right? Because the risk reward comes there. So essentially, the system basically breaks itself to where prosecutors and judges and DAs are only sending people to prison that really need to be in prison, and everybody else is not being incarcerated. And that's and again, if you're violent, if you're a criminal, if you've hurt somebody, if you've actually done a real crime, you need to be in prison. You need to be away from society. But most of the things, like we said, are victimless. The only thing that they hurt is themselves.
So interesting fact. I couldn't make it to the Libertarian convention here in California because I was in Texas.
Okay.
And I was watching my son get demolished by his team get demolished by Texas A&M baseball, which is number 4 in the nation. But 2 parents on his team are in law enforcement. One was previously federal, one was local. And being the libertarian that I am, I love spreading the word. So I was talking to them about victimless crimes.
Sure.
And I got pushback.
Really?
On that about victimless crimes. And then I told them one of my favorite things to tell people is that government creates crime. Because in essence, there's only, and I did this before, I need to do it again, but there's only 8 to 10 real crimes in the world.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's government creating crime, because you don't steal, don't hurt, don't kill, don't rip off, and all of those things, a couple of them are very much interchangeable. That's why I limit it at the maximum of 10.
Yeah.
Since government creates crime, I wanted to tell the people how a libertarian would create liberty, whereas crime would be reduced by making sure that there was a victim. And you talk about that.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
depending on where you live, I would ask that you either give a FOIA request, or you can probably get the data from your department of the dispatch times, the number of on-scene times, and then the codes of what they ended up being. And if you sort this out in almost every municipality in the country, urban municipalities where there's actually a density of people, you'll find that like 89% of the time, what a police officer is doing is dealing with something completely not criminal in the sense that you're talking about, involving, violence or fraud, right? You're dealing with traffic stops. You're dealing with, welfare checks. You're dealing with, again, simple possession of narcotics, whether it's, marijuana or something else, right? That's the majority bulk of time that's being used by law enforcement. So we're spending an awful lot of money on an awful lot of a lot of things that really, honestly, if you heard tomorrow that your neighbor did, you'd be like, oh, he was speeding. Like, he's not dangerous. Now, let me tell you something. You come home and someone says, hey, your neighbor killed somebody yesterday. You might not want him to be your neighbor anymore, right?
Yeah.
But, I think that the hesitancy that you find, and see, when I talk to law enforcement officers, I kind of get a 50-50 split. The veteran law enforcement officers that I talk to that have been there, that are, I would consider quote unquote good cops, ones that are trying to like not infringe on people's rights all the time, right? They tend to agree with me, and they go, yeah, you're right. Like, we want to be using our time on this, right? But we have to do this and this and this. And then the other ones I think that are sort of kind of bound in the system, they think that somehow decriminalization means destigmatization, right? That, you're going to decriminalize something and all of a sudden you're going to be like, yeah, go do it. So my message to people on incrementalism with that is embrace the incremental philosophy of taking things very slowly, one step at a time, because that's how you win the public over.
Right.
Many states in this country have decriminalized, cannabis or created a recreational market, and they're not, imploding, right? I mean, they're not, there's not rampant violence in the streets because of reefer madness. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not happening. But some communities, we have to respect that, they don't want these things in their community. And
Right.
as libertarians, we have to also remember that community organization of, by choice is a right of individuals. You have a right as an individual to cooperate with your neighbor and create community standards. These are things that you can do, and then people can either volunteer to be part of that community, or they can volunteer to not be part of that community. And so, like, we have a lot of rural areas in Arkansas where, a pastor will say to me, Michael, I know that marijuana is not hurting anybody, but I don't want a dispensary on the corner of my town, and none of my congregation does, and none of the citizens do, right? And so you say to them, well, what if we just expanded the medical program? We just made the secretary be able to say basically everything from a headache to a ingrown toenail, you can get a card, and everything went through that. Would you be okay with that initially? And they go, yeah, Michael, I think I'd be okay with that. That's how you buy consensus and you move forward. And then you do that for 5 or 6 years, and you go here and you go here, and then you get to a place where the community and you are in line with things.
I can dig it.
Comment got me.
I just want to
I didn't see
add
it.
one asterisk to what
Yeah.
Michael just said. If you have, at the current state of affairs,
Yeah.
if you have a medical marijuana card and a firearm, you are in trouble federally and most of the time locally.
So
Right.
technically, Marcus, that questionnaire, the government, I don't know if it's
The
federal, state,
4473. Yeah.
yeah, it specifically says if you have a marijuana addiction. So if you're
But that's how
using
they,
it,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. If you're using it as a medication that you're not addicted to, technically you could win that in court. I guarantee you.
Here's the
in
thing.
California,
Here's the
that's
thing.
the only thing
The
they
Controlled
did.
Substances Act and the scheduling are on its last legs. Like
Mhm.
this is gaining incredible impotence at a federal level. I mean, it's not going to be. This is not going to be in 5 years. The CSA is not going to be here. It's just not going to be. 24 years ago, Marcus, interestingly, when I was in the year 2000, nobody I knew had like constitutional carry as a state. Everybody, some states had open carry, but it was kind of a de facto, it wasn't even in code, really. It just was like this thing. Most places were just now beginning to embrace concealed carry licenses. Like there was like 5 states that were doing it. We got 28 states now where it's just carry whatever, whenever. However, except for Florida, you can't open carry. But 28 states. I mean, in 24 years. What will the victimless crime world look like in 24 years? If we do it the right way, we'll have safer communities and healthier communities and less laws.
Well,
hey, look, guys, we've been doing a crappy job of raising money for Michael White here. So I just want to say go to mwforliberty.com/donate. Give whatever you can, $20 here or there. Everybody that's made a comment, for every comment you gave, you should have to give $1 to Michael. That's all.
There we go.
But
and we have your names. So if you don't want to get doxed,
So
we dox people.
Our initial funding goal that we like is for the first strategy is about $20,000 here by the end of the month, and we're very close to getting there. But those last numbers are always the hardest to get over. So this is a winnable election. I want to drive that point home. This isn't winnable in the sense that we say every election's winnable. It's winnable in the sense that this is a 50-50 split district with no Republican running. I mean, that's how winnable it is.
Hey, Michael, real quick. I mentioned this awesome koozie I had earlier. You said that's dope. It's a plate carrier. It says Merrick on it. It's blurry, but that reminds me. How do you feel on the protect the guard or defend the guard legislation? And if you're familiar with that, and in the state of Arkansas, veteran issues and everything, I understand you're limited to what you could do as a state legislator for our veterans, but the National Guard in your state, you kind of
so I actually spoke at the Capitol on the Defend the Guard legislation in 2022. So obviously I'm a proponent of it. For those that don't know, it essentially restricts the National Guard to domestic affairs and in-state affairs only. No deployment of National Guard troops to foreign theaters of combat unless there is a declaration of war by Congress as per the United States Constitution, which is exactly how it should be already, right? We shouldn't have to be doing this, but the National Guard becomes the way that they have, fueled this. Eric, we and you are the same age. I had so many buddies that were like, man, I'm just going this to get some college and to get like $300 a month. And the next thing I know, like, shit, I'm going to Iraq, man. That happened to so many people. And they use these young men and young women to fund these endeavors. And so, but when it comes to veteran stuff, man, look, I would like Arkansas to be like the gold standard for how veterans are treated by state and local government. I think that I would like the way that veterans are treated to be the example of how everybody should be treated. And let me tell you what I mean by that. It's like no charges for hunting licenses, no charges for vehicle registrations, no charges for driver's licenses. Like give those to veterans, embrace the veteran community, have the veteran community move here, make our neighborhoods and our schools and our communities safer and better and more vibrant and happier, and prop up their quality of life, and then show them as an example to the citizens and say, you need this too. So whatever I could do for veterans, I'm down for. I mean, absolutely. I love the veteran community. I was endorsed by like 3 veteran groups in my last election, and I hope to get that many or more this election.
Awesome.
All right. So, Michael, what message do you want to send our fellow beautiful Americans, all the California 4.5s in Arkansas? And I'm not trying to diss or anything, but what message do you want to send your fellow Arkansans to vote for Michael White?
The message I want to send them is the one that I've been sending for a while, which is this election really is a choice between the status quo and something new. The only hope for change in this election is voting for me. And so if you're happy with the way things are going, if you think things are on the right track, then your decision is already made for you. But if you're not happy with the way things are going, and most people are not, then also your decision is made for you. It's a little bit easier in this election because there's no throw your vote away sort of mentality. If you don't vote for me, it's not like the Democrat's going to win because the Democrat's already in office. So if you don't vote for me, she certainly is going to win. For the conservative voters here, we certainly have their vote, I think. In fact, I believe we'll probably capture 100 of it. The difference in this election will come down to the independent voter and a few of the people that want a conversation change. And so we hope to embolden and enlighten and to enthuse a new voter base that wants to vote for a viable third-party choice for the first time, as like to be able to do something historic, truly. And then also for those people that have typically voted in the Democrat camp, in Arkansas specifically, they know that they're a ineffective minority party. And I think what they really want is a change of conversation. And I represent the best hope for that.
I don't have anything to say. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to end this podcast 3 minutes early. So let's go.
Yeah, we don't have to end 3 minutes early.
Shout out.
Yeah.
1776swag.com. Go check them out. They got some awesome merch. Michael, since you're no longer a guest, but your family, why don't you finish this?
Oh yeah. It's only treason if you get caught. Yeah. Right? Only treason if you lose. That's what I usually say about 1776 swag. Yeah. Also visit Common Arms Trade Company. Sounds like it's spelled like it sounds. Common Arms Trade Company, your one-stop shop for all things 2A. The FFL NFL. That is Common Arms Trade Company because he's in Florida. And I think you had another one. Who do we got? We got Horny Town Guns and Ammo. If you're ever in Eric Parker's neighborhood of the woods, go visit a man in a Connex container with some weapons. He actually has a license. He can sell them to you, and you don't have to worry about the feds coming out anywhere. Yeah, exactly. So Horny Town Gun and Ammo, thank you. And as always, the Firearms Radio Network, we appreciate you listening to the Black Powder Podcast on the Firearms Radio Network. We are very happy to be here. Did I do that well? I mean, I've been out of practice for 58 minutes. Yeah.
Hey, Marcus, do you want to drop some upcoming episodes you might have?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. No, tell them. Yeah.
Can we tell them?
Yeah, tell them what's coming up in 7 days.
A week from today, we're going to have the one, the only Spike Cohen on the Black Powder Podcast.
That's right. In 7 days, Spike will be on. Spike tends to like to come on like 1 minute before we go live. So, but he is so good at this. He has his mic and camera always perfect. He's just ready because he's amazing at this.
If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Hey, Spike. So 2 things I got to shout out for if you're listening to us. Number 1 is your space laser trend today that somehow MTG started for you. I know who really has the Jewish space laser. We all know that you have it. And it's why we're selling out of blue paint left and right in hardware stores here. Yeah. And then also for the first time in a long time, and I'll say this for the first time in a long time, Spike was wrong on something on his week. And dude, I know it's rare. This is rarer than seeing a Sasquatch, right? This is super rare. He put out a tweet about how Nikki Haley was going to endorse Donald Trump, and she didn't. And that was the first time, I think, in like all the time I've ever known of Spike or known Spike, that he has not been 100% correct on something. So Spike,
Spike was wrong about a big thing. But
what's that?
Spike was wrong about Russia not invading Ukraine. I don't know if you remember that. That went viral. He's
Yeah, man,
like,
they
well,
still
all right.
have it. You know,
Look,
yeah.
Basically, Spike
Anyway.
has 2 strikes, but next week, next Wednesday,
I give look. Spike only he has no strikes. He always gets out of strikes, so he's back to 0, man. Yeah.
okay. We're as
Then
we close.
the week after that.
And the week after Spike,
the
who
week
we got on
after
here?
that, we have the Free State Project out of New
Yeah,
Hampshire coming
That's
on.
right, Free State Project after that.
Yep.
So we got 2
Yeah.
big Liberty episodes coming. But yeah, again, thanks for having me, Alan, as a guest tonight in that capacity and let me dominate the time for this. Again, please visit mwforliberty.com. That's MW the number 4 liberty.com. You can click donate on that website and please give generously. We have a very well-funded Democrat opponent that we have to go up against, and we're not going to be able to mount the right offensive if people don't go ahead and give. So that $50, that $100, I promise you in a year, you're not going to miss it. But if we don't get elected to this seat, you're going to be really wish you had helped. I mean, so we have a chance to put a libertarian in Arkansas for the first time in history.
All right. So somebody said something about me saying MF earlier. I'm going to say this in closing. You MFs need to walk the walk and talk the talk. This is our time. 2024 is the best year for libertarianism as it stands right now. You can
We got
see that
so
from
many things going for us.
Argentina to North America. This is an opportunity.
Hornytown, North Carolina.
And I'm going to add one
Hornytown,
thing to
North
that, Marcus.
Carolina.
I'm going to add one thing to that, Marcus.
What?
If you're not willing to get in the fight and actually do the work for this,
Yeah,
I would ask you to just get the hell out the way.
fuck off.
Yeah, just get out the way. Just get out the way.
MTG.
Yeah, you can hang. Look,
Go
hang
fuck off.
your Gadsden flags all you
Yeah.
want to. You can have anything in your
Yeah.
bio, but just get out of the way. Like if you're not going to really help this happen, we have all the things are aligning that we need to grow liberty significantly, more so than
100%.
ever. We have. I mean, again, you know how good Javier Malay's been for us. I talk to guys that have always thought libertarians are crazy. And they go, well, you know, we got Javier Malay. I think I can get with that now. You know what I'm saying? Like this, we got to take this, man. You can't blow this opportunity, people.
This is our chance.
When he got elected, I told libertarians to slow down. I take that back because he's being successful in what he's doing.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go.
And
this is our time. Let's not bullshit. Donate. Give $10, $15, $20. If you don't have that shit,
give 1,000, give 500. You know? Things are expensive.
What's the maximum? What
maximum
is the
$3,300.
There you go. Come up off it, Lars.
Yeah. No, actually, Lars has been very generous. Thank you very much.
I know.
And because Lars Mapstead does walk the walk.
Yes.
He really does. And again, that's why he is he's where he is, and he's going to get this party to where it needs to be. Because he is walking the walk. We got a lot of talking. We need less talking, more walking. This is a winnable election. We can put a libertarian in the state house in a very conservative area. That's going to put us on the map. It legitimizes it in Arkansas and every surrounding state. And before you know it, we're making it easier for people to get elected in Oklahoma, in Mississippi, in Alabama. And we keep on going. And then we have 1 in every 50 states. And then all of a sudden, we end up with our first libertarian congressional member. And once we do that, it's over. That's game, set, match, man. We are going.
Proof in the pudding. And with that, I ask Eric Parker and the Honorable Michael White to join me in saying this to my fellow Americans. 3, 2, 1. Live free or die.
Now the world's longest click, guys. Thanks for listening to us.
Okay, hold on.
Appreciate you. Let's see how many seconds. I'll always count this down at the end of the break.